Have you heard the story of the pilot who flew into heavy cloud cover? They couldn't see a thing, and instead of trusting the readings in their cockpit, they made adjustments based on panic and what they thought they should do. They made so many adjustments that when they finally made their way through the cloud cover, they found that their aircraft was completely upside down. To me, this can be what it's like making adjustments to your creative process based on what you think you should be doing, or based on what other people might want. The moment you do that, you completely lose track of your own radar, and you too could end up flying out of the clouds upside down. You're listening to Behind the Song, an ongoing series investigating the creation of songs I've written as Granfalloon. Deep dives into the nuts and bolts of the songwriting process. Chapter 1. The Back of My Neck. Sometimes I'll be working on a harmony with somebody, and they might say something like, well, the root note of the melody is a G, so a B will work, or a D. Or we could try a second and use the A. They all technically work. But they won't all satisfy the back of my neck. The back of my neck knows which one is right. I'm aware that I've just said something that's probably raised an eyebrow or caused some confusion or bemusement at the very least, as I'm often faced with this response when I talk about this concept. I think I need to define the concept, to lay it out once and for all, at length, you lucky things. When I first discovered music, the world finally made sense. It felt like, out of everything existence offered in the way of trials, tribulations and experiences, music was the one thing that the universe had actually got right. There's a sensation of everything falling away, of entering the inside of your mind only to find it completely black and empty, devoid of complication and worry. And then a feeling I would describe as a cold, white shiver starts at the base of your spine, working its way through your body, raising the hairs on the back of your neck, before making its way to your head and causing a full head shiver to the tips of your hairs. I don't know the first piece of music that made me feel this way, but I can distinctly remember it happening the first time I heard One of These Things First by Nick Drake, or Search and Destroy by the Stooges, or Bye Bye Blackbird by Josephine Baker. I found answers there to questions I never even knew I had. I can sort through my thoughts and unlock a complicated world there. It's uplifting, transformative and cathartic, all at once. There's fire and energy there, but also peace. It's possible that this is what some people feel when they meditate, or when they cook, or even for some people when they listen to Ed Sheeran. Whatever works for you, I suppose, but it's the finest feeling in the world, and it's what I'm always chasing when I put a song on to listen to, or start writing my own songs. I'm chasing that feeling like the metaphorical first drug high or rush of adrenaline. So when I slap the back of my neck and tell somebody that this is the right chord or note, that's what's guiding me. That's how I emerge from the storm with my plane the right way up. Chapter 2. Writing in 2020. Playing music with other humans can be one of the finest feelings in existence too, but there are also frustrations involved with this. Reliability is the number one frustration. Will your collaborators show up on the day, or will one of the varying levels of severe excuses foil your plans? Did that flat tire / nephew's wedding / family funeral / visiting friend / shopping trip with new girlfriend / cough / cold / severed thumb as a result of a faulty bowling ball put paid to your creative process? The problem is that none of us have enough time. Music rarely pays enough for it to be one's full-time pursuit, and that means that people, even the most well-intentioned people, have to prioritise other things in order to pay their rent and feed their kids and the myriad other frivolities that they feel are important. However, for 10 weeks in spring 2020, people couldn't do much of anything about those concerns. All they could do was sit at home on their hands, either drinking too much or getting really into running. At the time, I was engaging in a round of weekly songwriting. While I was writing these song-a-week songs, I began to receive messages from long-time collaborators and friends. They wanted to know what I was working on and did I need any bass or drums or keys or cello or flute or anything on them. It was an unprecedented situation for me, but a perfect hand-in-glove moment that led to a few weeks of constant collaboration with all of my favourite musicians that I've worked with from the previous 20 years. It resulted in some of my favourite songs I've ever written. One such song was The River Knows. Chapter 3. The Absurdity of Detailed Plan Making. Now, I'm writing this 6 years on from the original process, but luckily I'm a relentless note-taker. I'm working with a bunch of great musicians who I haven't worked with for years. We worked together on a project called Johnny Fifth Wheel and the Cowards. We've come back together just because of this project, in this time, in this place. It's been good to reconnect, but not without its challenges. There's certainly a lot to be said for what can be intuited from being in a studio room with somebody physically. To communicate with them wholly, to be face to face. In a way, that's one of the very crucial things that draws me to not only music, but storytelling. This magic trick of being able to communicate something that only exists in your mind to another person using only words or music. I'd initially pictured this song as a jazzy, almost John Martin-esque piece, so light as to be almost teetering on the edge of existence. But what the other musicians have added to it have taken it somewhere so beautiful, floaty and translucent that this is currently my favourite song on the album. Don't hold that fish so tight. It'll flop right out of your hands. I remember the opening guitar line from The River Knows as something I'd toyed around with the week before or so I tackled the song. But mirroring the line with my vocal melody and leaving that arrangement quite sparse was a new approach to me. I tend to finger notes from a choral harmony rather than individually, and I rarely use my voice and guitar in unison before this song. It's an approach that puts me in mind of one of my favourites, Paul Simon. I'm thinking of songs like Still Crazy After All These Years and Renee and Georgette Magritte with Their Dog After the War. It's a very delicate, intimate way to write, and I'd like to try more of it still. From those notes, I'll then try to find a chord or a note in the melody to land on that feels unexpected or causes the radar on the back of my neck to go off. Remember the back of my neck? It always knows. The River Knows had started in a very Paul Simon-y jazz folk place. I'd started with a D major 7th after all. I think my obsession with the major 7th chord can be traced to my love for Burt Bacharach's writing. But I also felt it had a feeling which matched another of my favourites, Anthony Newley's Pure Imagination from the film Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Come with me, and we'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. I was intentionally moving to each new chord, auditioning what it could be until my radar went off, and gently seeing where the melody wanted to take me until I reached the unexpected modulation to the B-flat major 7th for the pre-chorus. Chapter 4. Lyrical Wax. Close your eyes and face the sun. Tell me what you see. Is it real? Orange flashes, purple, green, all the colors in between. It's real. How you feel? Yes, it's real. Oh, so real. Yes, it's real. In the spring of 2020, we saw some glorious weather in the northwest of England. Sat in the backyard writing, I literally did close my eyes and face the sun. I've always loved that feeling of sunlight hitting eyelid, and it felt like I did capture that small moment lyrically with that opening line. When I got to the chorus, there was a space from the A-7 chord just hanging there, and it gave me a wonderful jumping off point to move into a different tempo and feel. I've already mentioned that I was reading Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse that week. Time has dulled my recollection somewhat, but I believe I was at a point in the story where the eponymous protagonist and his friend Govinda encounter a ferryman who lives his life in an uncomplicated way. His worries and cares are minimal, and he appears to have found tranquility and balance. Yep, that ferryman really seems to have it all figured out. How did this intersect with my own current experience? Locked down with next year's worth of touring and releases put on hold? The idea of making any plans at all seemed absurd. Everything we try to make plans for can be so easily cancelled by the whims of outside influence.
We're just water babies, making plans. We make plans for the rain. Water babies, making plans. We make plans for the rain.
I'm fairly certain that the term Waterbabies comes from the book, and I'm pleased with that double meaning within the Plans for the Rain lyric. We make plans for rainy days, but also trying to plan life is about as absurd as trying to make plans for the rain itself.
The future laughs at your plans. The river laughs at your plans. Laugh along with it. Let your laughter flow to the river. The river knows. The river knows. The river knows.
I have a memory that our enlightened ferryman was the one who uttered, "The river laughs at your plans." So enlightened. The second verse, again, connected the themes of the book with what was happening in my own life at the time. I was just in the early days of a budding relationship with a wonderful woman. I hadn't planned for our relationship, but our meeting would never have happened if not for lockdown. Unbeknownst to me, she was starting to feel just as strongly as I, and the result of this was her asking for a weekend of non-contact. She asked for this wisely to consider her own feelings, and to end any other entanglements she might have been engaged in so she could focus on our new relationship. But I didn't know this. I knew only that she was deeply unsettled by lockdown, and I, pessimistically, took it to be a waning of our connection. Silly me.
I know boats get lost in storms. I know your boat has been warned, and you have things to do. Hatches to batten, ropes to tie. I'll see you again when you're sailing high. Don't pass me by or leave me behind. Don't pass me by. Don't pass me by.
This wonderful woman later became my wife. Expectations and plans, eh? The river must be rolling on the floor. Chapter 5. Arrangement and Production. As previously stated, I wanted to keep this track floaty light, and to me, this usually means discarding the drums. Our usual drummer for this project had actually cried off that week. I think either to do some drink running or run drinking, so that worked out nicely. I laid down my acoustic part and sang a guide vocal to send to my old buddy Thirds, with the instruction of adding a John Martin-style guitar harmony. And this is where planning meets reality. Thirds tried their hand at the guitar harmonies, but to no avail. They just couldn't hear what I was hearing, and so instead added some Rhodes and keys parts before playing a miniature jazz drum kit in the choruses. They emailed me the parts. But drums? Richard, I remember you saying you didn't want drums on this. Floaty light was the brief you'd given them, right? Correct. Well remembered, imaginary listener. It's easy to become disappointed when you lay out what you want to a collaborator in what you believe are clear terms and they don't engage with them in the way that you'd envisioned. Indeed, when I downloaded the parts, I wasn't in my studio, so I listened to them entirely in isolation, not with my guitar parts, already in the mindset that they would be unsuitable for the song at hand. And the same applied to the bass guitar that Daz Woodcock had recorded and sent to me. It felt too impactful, too rhythmic. Not at all the Danny Thompson-esque sliding bass I was expecting. Just what the hell were these guys hearing? Why couldn't I just take the way the song sounded in my head and transmit it directly into their brains? This mindset, this sense of disappointment, is very important to note. Not because I want to complain, who doesn't love a good grumble, or disparage these amazing musicians, but because I was about to learn one of the most memorable and important lessons that I feel I've ever learned as a collaborating songwriter. I was 100% incorrect in my initial assessment. I'll say that again. I was wrong. When I got back into the studio and imported those drums and keys into the project, they worked. And not only that, once the bass was settled in between them, the song became something else, something much, much more than I had imagined. Those parts which I didn't understand in isolation had nestled together beautifully. It helps that Daz and Thirds both live in the same town. The sneaky buggers had obviously been coordinating what they would do, and their parts worked together beautifully. All of a sudden, this song was no longer the floaty John Martin thing I thought it would be. But that was just a thinky idea that only existed in the imagination. This was a real, living thing that had manifested. I could now hear traces of Serge Gainsbourg and Scott Walker in it. The River Nose had taken on a form I would never have arrived at on my own, and it was all the better for it. The idea of the auteur is one that's become deeply romanticised in our creative society. One person, their grand dream, realised through grit and determination, all by themselves. What a genius they must be. What a rich creative vein they must have tapped into. But it's a fallacy. Think of any auteur, be they a director, a writer, a musician. Almost none of them operate in isolation. They all stand on the shoulder of a host of talented and hard-working collaborators. Do you think Breaking Bad or Twin Peaks The Return or What's Going On are monumental and perfectly imperfect works of art because of just one person? Even the Beatles wouldn't have achieved what they did without George Martin, Jeff Emerick, Billy Preston, and so many more. I'd always prided myself on this ability to have the grand vision, to see it through and realise the masterpiece in one's mind. But the experience I had making The River Nose was a catalyst in changing that outlook. Not only am I so much more appreciative of the contributions others make to the work, but it's had a direct effect on every song I've written since. When collaborating with someone, there's always going to be some push and pull. But I've found the most rewarding and effective collaborations to be the ones where you can feel both of your radars align on a new path that you might never have reached on your own. Something that satisfies the backs of everyone's necks. I no longer expect to recognise the eventual piece of music that emerges when I first sit down to write. And I think that my art is much improved for that change in mindset. I've also become more aware of this auteur tendency in other artists, and when I'm producing another artist or guiding a student through a songwriting lesson, I now try to introduce this concept. To guide them gently to the idea that not everything in the eventual realisation of the song will be what they had imagined, and that maybe, just maybe, it will be all the better for it. What did I say back in 2020? Don't hold that fish so tight. It will flop right out of your hands. Epilogue. The River Flows is now available to stream, pun intended. Just follow the link in the description. The incredible humans that make up my Patreon and Bandcamp subscribers can also look forward to early access to written blogs, as well as more exclusive video content. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Close your eyes and face the sun. Tell me what you see. Is it real? Orange flashes, purple, green, all the colors in between. It's real. How you feel? Yes, it's real. Oh, so real. Yes, it's real. We're just water babies Making plans, we make plans for the rain. Water babies, making plans, we make plans for the rain. The future laughs at your plans. The river laughs at your plans. Laugh along with it. Let your laughter flow to the river. The river knows. The river knows. The river knows. I know boats get lost in storms. I know your boat has been warned, and you have things to do. Hatches to batten, ropes to tie. I'll see you again when you're sailing high. Don't pass me by or leave me behind. Don't pass me by. Don't pass me by. We're just water babies, making plans, we make plans for the rain. Water babies, making plans, we make plans for the rain. The future laughs at your plans. The river laughs at your plans. Laugh along with it. Let your laughter flow to the river. The river knows. The river knows. The river knows. The river knows. The river Close your eyes and face the sun. Tell me what you see. Is it real?
Did that flat tire / nephew's wedding / family funeral / visiting friends / shopping... This is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
Did that flat tire / nephew's wedding / family... Okay. Did that flat tire / nephew's wedding / family funeral / visiting friends / shopping trip... / nephew's wedding / family funeral / visiting friends / shopping trip with new girlfriend / cough / cold / so close. Did that flat tire / nephew's wedding / family funeral / visiting friends / shopping trip with new girlfriend / cough / cold / severed thumb as a result of a faulty bowling ball put paid to your creative process? I think that was all right, actually, but I'll try it one more time. I like the fact that it ran out of...
Yeah.
Yeah.